Welcome to Algebra 2 class. Today we're going to be looking at solving radical equations. To solve radical equations, we're going to look at a process in 3 steps. The first step is to isolate the radical on one side of the equation. The next step is to raise both sides of the equation to the reciprocal power of the radical. And our third step will be to solve the resulting polynomial equation using known methods. So let's take a look at our first example. Our first example is the equation the cube root of x minus 9 equal to -1. We're going to start by isolating the radical on one side of the equation by adding 9 to both sides. That gives us the cube root of x is equal to 8. The cube root of x is the same as x to the 1/3 power. So the reciprocal power of this radical is going to be the third power. The reciprocal of 1/3 is 3/1. So I'm going to take both sides of this equation and raise to the third power. When I do that, on the left side we have an exponent of 1/3 raised to the third power. So our rule says to multiply these exponents. So when multiplying reciprocals, we get 1. 1/3 times 3 is 1. So we end up with x to the first power, or just x, is equal to 8 to the third, which is 512. Let's take a look at our second example now. Again, we're going to start by isolating the radical. So we're going to start by getting rid of plus 1 by doing subtract 1 to both sides. So we have 2 times the square root of x minus 3 now is equal to 4. And then we're going to undo the multiplication of 2 times the radical. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. And we get the square root of x minus 3 now is equal to 2. The square root of x minus 3 is the same as x minus 3 to the 1/2. Our reciprocal power would be to the second power. So we can actually just take this radical, square root of x minus 3, and square it, as long as we square both sides of the equation. So we see that a square undoes a square root. When I square the square root of x minus 3, I'm left with just x minus 3, and that equals to 4. Adding 3 to both sides gives us x is equal to 7. Okay, that's our first 2 examples. Let's look at 2 more examples. In these 2 examples, we're going to be looking at expressions that are not written in radical form, but are written in exponential form. We have the quantity x plus 2 raised to the power of 3/4. We're going to start this the same way. We're going to isolate the term that has the radical or the rational exponent. So let's add 1 to both sides of the equation. That leaves us with the quantity x plus 2 raised to the 3/4 power equal to 8. Okay, now we have to raise it to the reciprocal power. So the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. So we're going to take and raise both sides of this equation to the 4/3 power. On the left side again, when I multiply reciprocals, I get 1. So 3/4 times 4/3 is 1. So we have x plus 2 to the first power, which is just x plus 2. On the right side, the 3 represents the root. So I'm looking at a cubed root. So I want the cube root of 8 raised to the 4th power. The cube root of 8 is 2. So I have 2 to the 4th power on the right side of the equation. 2 to the 4th is equal to 16. So I have x plus 2 equals 16. Subtracting 2 from both sides gives us x equal to 14. Let's try our next one. Again, we're going to isolate the portion of the equation that is raised to the rational power. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add 15 to both sides of the equation. That leaves us with 3 multiplied by the quantity 2x minus 1 to the 4/3 equal to 48. Now we need to divide both sides by 3. So dividing by 3, That gives us 2x minus 1 to the 4/3 power is equal to 16. Now we're ready to raise it to the reciprocal power. The reciprocal power of 4/3 is 3/4. So let's take 2x minus 1, that's now to the 4/3 power, and raise it to the 3/4 power. And on the right side, we take 16, also raised to the 3/4 power. On the left side, the exponents multiply to 1, they're reciprocal, so we get 2x minus 1. And on the right side, we have something unusual happening. The root here, the 4, is an even number. We have an even root. And whenever we have an even root, we have the possibility of two answers. We have the positive root and the negative root. So on the right side, we have plus or minus the 4th root of 16 raised to the 3rd power. The 4th root of 16 is 2, so we have plus or minus 2 raised to the 3rd power. And 2 raised to the 3rd power is 8, so we have 2x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus 8. That now is going to give us two equations. We have 2x minus 1 equal to 8, or 2x minus 1 equal to negative 8. In each case, we're going to solve by adding 1 and dividing by 2. Adding 1 to both sides, so we get 2x equals negative 7, and dividing by 2, we get x equals negative 3.5. And those are our solutions for our radical equations.